Oh boy. Well, let's see. I've been recently trying to stay warm.
Yeah, all of us, right?
um, I've been pretty much in town pretty steadily since the beginning of October. I was this year has been a lot of catch up for. I don't know if you guys were aware, but I play with Kenny Wayne Shepherd Band.
And you're out. You tour hard.
This year was kind of catch up for a lot of that, and we were out pretty steadily through a good part of the year. But it stopped. It stopped the first week of October. We were supposed to go to Europe for about 25 days, and that got postponed till next year. And I've been home, and I've just been playing gigs. I have some regular things that I've been doing, and this month has been pretty packed with Christmas parties and events like that, and little strange things. Like I went on the morning show with Ronnie Lamarck and Jack Mealy. We had a fun time doing that. Ronnie's a kick.
Yeah, he is.
He actually can sing really well,
Yeah.
but he's just the whole thing, you know.
I can't hear Volare without thinking of Ronnie.
I know
Lamar.
that's who he is, you know. There's a couple of tunes that are like that's who he is, you know. And but that was fun, and we did that, and I've been playing my little regular spots, the Maple Leaf and Dos Cafes and Redfish Grill, and you know, just doing what I do normally when I'm not touring, and it's been good. It's been nice being home. It got a little cold this past week. Other than that, I love being in New Orleans.
Yeah. Well, we love having you back home.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about of course, you know, we're all mourning the death of Walter Wolfman Washington, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, it's just such a loss. And you know, I guess I knew him. You know, I mean, he would have said hi, I would have said hi, but we weren't, you know, like tight or anything. What I did not know was the depth and the breadth of his influence across our musical spectrum.
He was like the star of the people, in the sense that he was out there, around town. He would always be very visible, and he would sit in with a lot of people, and he'd always have people sit in with him. Through the years, he's had all kinds of people playing his band. He's done things with a lot with myself. We had a project together for about 15 years. He's one of these guys that was very actively involved with everybody. So many people, not everybody, but so many people around New Orleans. And you know, from the guys in Galactic to Preservation Hall, they all brought Walter in around them because he was that kind of a guy, you know. And he was always welcome about it. And some artists don't, you know, they keep a wall around them and they keep a distance, but Walter was never like that. And you know, when I started my project with him 15 years ago, we started out with Russell Batiste, and we had him in the band for about, I got to say, about almost 10 years. And but I approached Walter about doing it. It was right after Katrina, and very few of us were in town, and Walter was here and I was here, and I just, you know, we knew each other, and I just showed up at a gig and I was like, hey, Walt, and you know, he said, hey, and I said, is it all right if I sit in? He said, oh man, you got anything to play on? I was like, yeah. I went out to my car and I got my little red Nord, and I just sat in with the band, and I started doing that, you know, not every time he played over, it was at Bank Street, and not every time, but I was doing it some, and you know, it was enjoyable, and he was always open and friendly to have me come and do that. And then soon after that, I found an organ, Hammond organ, and I bought the organ, and my idea to do with this organ was to find a nightclub where I could leave it to play and get like a steady gig and work on having an organ trio, because I really wanted to do that classic organ trio thing. And I approached Walter about it, and he was like, he didn't even blink. He was like, yes, definitely, let's do this. And even as I did it, you know, he was always humble about the whole situation, because I was like, do you want to name this like the Walter Wolfman Washington Organ Trio? He goes, no, it's your project. I'm in your band, you know. And I mean, not a lot of guys are like that, you know. And we played some of my music, we played some of his music, we played some of Russell's music, and then about 5 or 6 years ago, Russell left the band, and we got Walter's drummer from the Roadmasters, Wayne Morrow, and we've been continuing with that, and we never stopped playing it. Even, I think one of the last live performances was a trio gig over at the Maple Leaf. We had a steady Sunday. I put the organ over at the Maple Leaf. Hank was like, let's try it. We'll do a couple of Sundays. After a few months, he goes, you guys got it. Because when we weren't doing it, there wasn't anything going on.
And I'm building you a closet to store that organ.
Oh, yeah. That organ is still there. It's limping a little bit, but it's still there. Living in a nightclub for an organ is not the best life, quality of life for having
Lack
an organ.
of vitamin D.
Yeah, and a lot of alcohol around it.
Yeah.
But, we played, and the last gig I played with him was at the Maple Leaf, and he insisted on making the gig. He couldn't sing at this point. His voice, his ability to sing was gone. And we just played instrumentals, and he was refused to I was like, Walter, if you need to cut it short, he's like, no, man, just keep playing it. And what he had left of his voice, he's like, I want to do this. I want to do this. And I swear, if he could, he would have been down at DBA with his band right up to the very end. Just even if they had to hold him up there, he would have done it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was that kind of a guy, and he was great.
Yeah. When did you first meet him?
I met him around, I was playing with Gatemouth Brown from 1992 until he passed in 2005, and it was during those years. We had done some shows together, and I had met him during that time period. And when we started playing together, I'd start doing some of the voicings that Gatemouth, I learned playing with Gatemouth, and Walter just lit up about that. He was like, man, I love that. And, not many guys do that. I'm like, it's because I learned it from the guy that you listened to.
Right.
The guy that you were trying to cop was, when you're playing certain things, was Gatemouth and T-Bone. And it's like, it all comes from that. And that was kind of like a camaraderie that we found first off. But it was somewhere around the early 2000s, late 1990s that I met Walter. And I sat in with him a few times, and we always connected. I mean, it was always good.
He seemed to have that broad, when I say he ran wide and he ran deep, he was very generous and also saw music as being an open communication.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And it was never about the money. Never. Walter played at Tipitina's and the House of Blues and the festivals all around the world, and yet he'll play over at D-Max.
Right. Or Bank Street.
Bank Street,
yeah.
which are local bars, very small, very local-oriented crowds that don't go to any other bars, and people don't go to those bars. It's like that sort of a thing where he would definitely do that. You could find Walter late night playing poker at Pal's. I mean,
or later night at
Bufus,
Snake and Jake's.
or Snake and Jake's. I mean, that's what I'm saying. He was out there, and he enjoyed being out there, and he enjoyed being part of the scene.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of Gatemouth. When Gatemouth was in his final months, he refused to just stay at home in bed waiting for it to happen. He was out. He had a driver. Sometimes he'd come out to just about all my gigs. He'd call me up, where you playing tonight and who you with, and sometimes he would just sit in the car. He didn't even have the strength to get out of it, and he just wanted to be out there.
Yeah.
And Walter was he had the same kind of spirit, he just wanted to be out and amongst people and playing his music. Hank Staples, the owner of the Maple Leaf, once said to me, he got Walter had a job that he was like playing at night and cleaning up during the day, and he said Walter told him that was the best part of this is the best times of his life. He's working 7 days a week, and he didn't mind the cleanup and everything. This is when he was really young.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of guy. It wasn't about how much money we're making. And trust me, I've done sessions with Walter. In fact, I've got a new recording that I got Walter on. Which
we're going to be hearing in a little bit.
We'll play that cut. And he after the session, he was like, I went to say, what do you need for this, Walter, to pay him? And he was like, I'm doing this for the love.
Oh, yeah.
And gave me a big hug. He bit me on the cheek.
Was this a special tradition?
That was Walter, when he was being affectionate, would kind of like just kind of bite you a
little
bit.
nip.
Yeah. The wolf, right?
Right.
That was his thing.
Well, we brought you here today. I wanted to hear your wonderful reminiscences, but also because we're bringing back live music into the studio.
Yeah, I know.
Tell me, what are we playing? What are you playing there, Joe? You got a keyboard in front of you. It's not an organ.
If people don't mind, I kind of like to play a little slow piece. Kind of as we get older, we say goodbye to friends and family, and I always kind of play St. James Infirmary as a tribute. And it's a very deep blues, and it's kind of I kind of feel like I want to do that. I'll play something bright after that,
but the piano is yours. Yeah. Carry on, Maestro.
St. James Infirmary.
Joe Krown here on WWOZ. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like, how do you feel like you can express yourself through your music like that and convey sadness and convey loss? That's a gift.
Well, at this age, you know, you got to be able to do it. What can I say?
Yeah,
And
I know.
that-
But well, you do it very well.
Thank you. But you know, I mean, that's my funeral song,
Yeah.
and it's something that, you know, it's like I said, it's a very deep blues, and we have to say goodbye to Walter, and you know, I'll miss him. It's funny because, you know, the same thing kind of happened when Gatemouth passed. You spend a whole lot of time playing shows and playing music and sharing music with someone, and then right after they pass, like, you know, you hear some of it. And I was listening on Monday to the, I think it was 3 hours of Walter from 4 to 7 or something, and they were playing some of our Jazz Fest set. And some of the, like I said, some of the music was mine, and some of the music was Walter's. And I'm sitting there thinking, as I'm listening to Walter sing and play one of his songs, I'm not going to play that stuff. It's done. It's not going to happen anymore. You know, I mean, it may happen that I may play some of it with some other people, but it will never be the same.
Right.
And, you know, like the same thing happens every time I hear Gatemouth, you know, like especially OZ will play during Jazz Fest, you know, a week of Jazz Fest shows, and I'll hear Gate, and I'm like, and it's the old band, and I'm like, man.
We were good.
First of all, I don't think I can play like that anymore. And second of all, it's like,
Come on,
I haven't
fingers.
played that stuff in 15 years, you
Yeah.
know, 17 years or something. And you know, the music I played with Walter will always be preserved on CD, but we won't play that on the stage anymore.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a certain sadness about that. And
But conversely, there's a joy. There's a tremendous joy, Joe, that we had it.
yes.
You know, we've
I got
had
to
these
share that with him.
amazing moments.
Yeah, that I got to share all that music with all those people, and you know, anyone that I had those experiences with, and I hear them play, and it's like there's a certain sadness about it, but there is also a joy that I was a part of that.
Yeah.
And that
Oh,
I,
yeah.
you know, got to experience that stuff. Like, you know, when Alan Toussaint passed, I got to be friends with him in the last like 3-4 years of his life, to the point where like we did a tour together, and then you know, he would come out to my gigs. He'd sit in with my band. He'd come over by Ralph's on the Park, and we do four-handed piano, which I got plenty of pictures of, actually some recordings too, and then he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, I was just getting to, like, you know, relax around him, because trust me, being around Alan was very intimidating. But I was just getting relaxed around him, and you know, it was that sort of thing that you know, you're sad that they're gone, but I was happy that I at least had those experiences.
Oh, yeah, those marvelous moments.
Yeah.
I want to remind our listeners that you are tuned to WWOZ FM New Orleans. It's the New Orleans Music Show. My name is Missy Bowen. This performance and interview is live streaming right now. If you want to go to our website, you can get the amazing visuals and be part of this conversation as well. Talking with Joe Krown, who's out with people like Gatemouth Brown and Kenny Wayne Shepherd more contemporaneously, but a superior piano player, organ player, and just all around amazing guy, and my boss on piano night, so I have to make nice to him. So you mentioned one more question before we get back into some music. You mentioned you know, you played with Gate, you've played with Walter Wolfman Washington, you've played with Alan Toussaint. These are some of the, what I regard as the prior generation, if you will. And, you know, it went from, you know, the professors. So we had, you know, Fess, and we had Toots Washington, and then moving into, you know, the people who emerged in the 60s and the 70s. And now, do you feel that you're carrying, that you have a responsibility to, you have those threads in your hands to pass them on and make sure they get extended into the future?
Well, that's a good question. I definitely feel that the generation is shifting. Clearly, all the originals are gone, and the next generation, meaning like the 50s, 60s guys, the originals are like the 30s, 40s, you know, to me. In the blues, R&B kind of era, people like T-Bone and Gatemouth, and then King BB and Bobby Bland, and you know, during that time, Fats Domino, Professor Longhair was with it. It was around the time Gatemouth. Gatemouth started around. His first recordings were in the late 40s, and Fest was around that time too. And you know, guys like Dr. John, Mac Rebenak, Alan Toussaint, Eddie Bo, they were kind of like the next generation that came out in the late 50s and 60s. And you know, Walter was kind of like the 60s and 70s guy, and I kind of got my career started around the 1980s. And I do feel a certain kind of drive to carry the torch in that sort of way. And I've always been compelled to study the originals and the generations of players that came after them, and to try to emulate that in a certain way and carry that forward. In fact, I was saying, I've got a new CD that I'm working on, and it's basically a tribute to all of that. And it's mostly, there's only 3 originals on it, and there's 11 songs, but the other 8 songs are all, you know, Dr. John, Professor Longhair, Alan Toussaint. I mean, all those songs, James Booker, you know, of the piano players that I have emulated and want to continue carrying that torch for. So I do feel like I said, I think the best word is driven. Like, because it's not like anybody's responsibility to do it, but I feel driven, and my involvement in Piano Night is part of that. You know, is to continue that legacy of New Orleans style piano players. And you know, Piano Night has grown, and it can't always be the same because a lot of these guys aren't around anymore. But I always try to have, you know, as we have grown, we've directed it more inward towards the local piano players, and I always try to prioritize the piano players that are carrying that torch, as we say, the guardians of that groove, of the piano groove that was Professor Longhair and Dr. John and James Booker and Eddie Bo and Alan Toussaint and all those great piano players. And there are a group of us that play in that style, and there are some young guys that are coming out and are really getting on it too. I mean, Kyle Roussel is fabulous, and you know, I mean, there's a lot of that spirit still there, and it needs to be to continue. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying we shouldn't evolve, because if we didn't, James Booker never would have been.
Right.
Because James Booker was an evolution of that style, but we should continue to evolve. But we also need to always have that in our back, you know, in there.
Absolutely. We're talking with Joe Krown. He's here playing, and he's got some music he brought in, as a matter of fact. And that's, of course, WWOZ FM New Orleans, just about 24 minutes after the hour of 12 o'clock. And a reminder again that, you know, this is great to listen to. It's great stories and comments from Joe Krown and fabulous music. If you want to get the video, check it out. We are live on our Facebook feed and on our YouTube feed. Uh-oh. So pay a visit. Yeah, you're famous now, man.
I'm fixing my hair now.
Makeup. We'll get the makeup guy in just a second.
I need my light show, too. My light show adjusted.
Yeah, you got a light show with Kenny Wayne Shepherd, don't you?
Oh, Kenny's got everything going.
How many tour buses?
Right now we're doing one.
Whoa.
Well, we had 2 horn players who are great guys. They retired from the band around June last year. But when we had those guys, we were doing 2 buses.
Uh-huh.
But we're back down.
Because the horn players need their own bus.
Well, it's not that they need their own bus. We were up to about 12 or 13 people.
Oh wow!
And it's like, you know. There's 7 on stage. There's 5 support. At one point, we had 6 support people out there.
Yeah.
You know,
you hit critical mass in terms of just oxygen available in a fan hole, right?
And there's only so many beds.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
a band like that, the way that we tour is we always drive after we perform to the next city.
Yeah.
Even if it's a day off, we drive to wherever we're spending the day off.
Get there.
So we always sleep on the bus overnight.
Yeah. Well, so what do you want to do? You want to play some more? Or you want to play a recorded thing? What's your pleasure?
Well, let's do a little recorded thing because we're talking about Walter. And this song is a song that I love to play with Walter. And as I was researching something to play with Walter, I found out that James Booker did a version of this. And I felt that it would keep it in line with the song, with the theme of the record of being about New Orleans and the New Orleans tradition.
Right.
Especially having Wolfman singing and playing, it would definitely keep it that way. But this is a tune that we recorded. It's called "Feel So Bad," and I'm pretty sure this was the very last recording session that Walter did. He had done some recording before that for another project that he's working on that is a beautiful project. I heard some cuts off of it, and it is definitely not the Roadmasters, The Funk Is in the House. It's definitely more jazzy. It's got more orchestral things going on, more ballads.
I love his jazzy side.
And his voice is the center of the record versus the whole funk in the house kind of thing that the Roadmasters were great about. This is a departure from that. As much as My Future Is in My Past was a departure, this goes even further. But he did that. He recorded his stuff for that before this, and this was his last session that we got him to do. And
when was this?
I'm thinking it was in September
of this year.
Yeah.
Okay, so really recently.
Yes, it was very recently. It was either August or September, and it was a little bit of a struggle because with the type of illness that he had, singing was very. Even talking, it got to a point where he couldn't talk at all.
He was congested and muscle tone and all that.
But we got it. We got it. And it's going to be on my new CD, which will be out sometime in 2023.
We'll look forward to it.
We're getting close. So.
Well, all right. So here's Joe Krown with Walter Wolfman Washington and Feels So Bad.